All right, what up, y'all? Welcome, welcome. Bookmap afternoon stream. It is 1 p.m. Eastern Time, Thursday, or traditional time. And before we really get started into the fun of today, we're going to read this disclaimer. Material information presentation is for educational or entertainment purposes only and should not be considered specific investment advice or recommendations. Any and all statements made on this channel are the sole opinions of Options Millionaire, should not be taken as financial advice. No financial decision should be made based on the material shown here on this channel. Trading futures, equities, and options involves substantial risk of loss not suitable for all investors. An investor could potentially lose all or more than the initial investment. Risk capital is money that can be lost without jeopardizing one's financial security nor lifestyle. Only risk capital should be used for trading, and only those with sufficient risk capital should consider trading. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. Trading is one of the riskiest and most difficult tasks one can undertake. It must be approached with extreme caution. Do not invest any money you can't afford to lose. There you go. Be smart. So what do we have today? The Bears have stepped in with vigor this week, and today down to 41.53. I'm currently holding 41.50 puts. I'm up about 120% on them. I wish I would have held my PDS. I netted 122, but that thing could have been phenomenally higher. Phenomenally higher. Is what it is, though. 41.53 here. They're shifting liquidity down and down and down. Throughout the entire session, they've shifted liquidity from 4,200 down to 4,190 and then 4,180 and then down and down and down as the buyers continually chase the downside here, chasing the dragon. We finally transacted a little bit of this 41.50, resulting in a bottom wick as they are attempting to eat through this bottom stuff here. There's not really much liquidity left being added. We do have some active liquidity, 4130, 4100, but it's still pretty light stuff and it's not being active. So if they start to pump 200, 300, we'll be looking for a big move. But right now, everything's centered on 4150. And my put just went from 120% profit to 60% profit. It's only runners, though. I've already closed out a good portion of the trade. VIX is skyrocketing. It is now up to 2160. TLT is 8412. And really, the only thing left right now is all eyes on the daily chart POC, which is 4120 on ES. 4120. Yeah, that's a pretty strong green candle. That's the biggest green candle we've had since 1040, right at the top of the hour. It looks like a 1 p.m. pop. Man, this thing's going. I'm going to close out my runners. That just smoked my runners. Smoked them. 1 second. I'm going to close my runners out. Out. Flat again. Right at the top of the hour. That was a 10-point pop on ES. And NASDAQ put on 50 points. TLT has rocket ship 8425. A little bit of liquidity up to 4170. We got Joe Biden scheduled to speak at 1 p.m. As well as the 7-year auction. Not to mention the top of the hour. We typically get a good fluctuation right here at the top of the hour. And yeah, VIX came off 2160. What a heck of a move, man. Heck of a move. That was a 30-point drop from the seller's point of view after rejecting the short-dated POC. We have 35% IV on SPY and 32% on SPX. So still very high IV. Premiums are still holding $12 even into the afternoon. Now let's take a look at the yields. What happened on that auction? Yields are getting smoked right now. So all of this lines up to flight to safety. Oh, yep. Sorry about that, Dan. I did that last time, didn't I? I apologize. Scare your screen. There we go. 15 frame rate. Bam. All right. Sorry about that. On Discord, you should be able to see my book map right now. So the yields are coming off. The bonds are skyrocketing. And the equities are coming off. So all of this has the theme of flight to safety trade. This is what everyone's talking about, where when bonds and equities finally diverge and the yields start coming off, which most people construe as bullishness, which up until this point has been, now we're seeing the opposite. Yields are dropping alongside of the equities and the bonds are rocketing. And we're starting to see more and more of that. This is the third or fourth instance of that in the past week and a half, as we've come all the way down, which is signs of the flight to safety as dealers flood out of tech and out of the flight to safety, because up until this point, the flight to safety was tech. And it's transitioning into treasuries, the treasury market, and that's the whole tie together. So you see, that's why we've had some severely red numbers on tech the past couple of days as the bonds continue to go up and yields continue to go down. But right back to 41.63 here on ES. We'll see if it'll hold. So far, top wick, we've got some major positive deltas building for tomorrow and Monday, which, as we all know, positive delta is overall bearish positioning for the market because dealers will have to short in order to hedge back to delta neutral. That's one of those things where selling begets more selling, and we have these waterfall days. So we're not out of the woods yet, not for a while. Now the question is, with 41.20 being the daily POC, what happens when we breach the daily POC? It's going to be substantial. Did you benefit off that drop? I did. I have taken 2 major trades today. Not to mention I closed out a put debit spread that I've been carrying since last Friday. I closed out the put debit spread for 122%. I closed out another put for 43%, and I just closed out my final put for 112%, roughly. I'd have to do the calculation on it. So it's been a pretty dang good day. I'm approaching the second best week of the year for me. Not there yet, but I'm almost. I'm currently sitting third. I'm in the hole. Trying to get on deck. However, what I'm looking for is how this macro theme is going to hold. So far, the bears have done a fantastic job in holding the VPA setups because we had a selling climax in the first week of October. If you're not familiar with VPA, volume price analysis, a selling climax is the final leg in distribution where dealers can now move the market lower. And that's what happened back in October, and finally we get some good, healthy VPA moves, and down we go after rejecting the 4,400 down to 41.59, obviously, which is a 300-point move down in the last week and a half of October. And the last stop is 41.20 adjusted POC for the daily. In terms of Bookmap, it's been fantastic watching the liquidity build lower. We've had 41.50 on there for a couple of days. They stacked 41.20, we came up, or 42.20, popped that to 4,200, and then quickly chased that liquidity lower with some fantastic icebergs. And on down. But obviously the big theme here is tech. Tech is down almost 2%. In fact, 2% right now. I just hit it. ES is down 1.2, and that's because of the relative strength. There's a whole bunch of relative strength right now, relative being the key word there, in the banks. Now, XLF finally gave back some gains there, but they were pretty green. XLRE is very green. XLU, utilities, or as Michael Gaed calls it, futilities. Very green, which is causing the S&P to hold up relative to the NASDAQ. So therefore, looking at the NASDAQ, you can see why the liquidity was pulling lower into 14,137 and even lower down to 14,100, which they've since removed a little bit on this pop. Overarching, though, this week has been an extremely high liquidity environment for NASDAQ, more so than ever, which makes sense with this type of volatile market. Having said that, I would like to see VIX go a little higher. Right now, dealers are sufficiently hedged. Well, were up until this point. Dealers were sufficiently hedged for this move, as indicated by the Greek and Delta's data on your analytics. The problem here is we have now breached all said hedges, which is one of the reasons why the VIX came off and then is holding over 21. And what I would like to see here to really get this thing going here is VIX to finally not mean revert, pop to 30, and then they continue to roll those positive deltas down a little bit more into the 400 area to get this freight train really starting to kick up some steam. And that's where you'll get your 3% day, exactly. Up until this point, dealers have been sufficiently hedged. which is why you keep getting these bounces that avoid a 3% day on the charts. Everyone keeps talking about the fact that we are in the 99th percentile of distance or time between 3% days. The last time we had a 3% negative day was in March, and it's one of the longest times in history that we've gone between 3% days, negative days. And it's because the market has been sufficiently hedged for downside until then, which requires dealers to obviously start to buy the underlying to hedge instead of sell at some point, which causes bounces, V recoveries, that type of thing. Or we get big green moves in pre-market and then the sell-off, which skews the data. So we are reaching the point that we are beyond the hedges, at least the planned hedges, and now it's going to start to induce some fear-based selling. That's going to cause the VIX to spike to 30. In addition to everything we talk about with the Treasury market, with TLT, the yields, the bonds, Bank of Japan, which is going to be the icing on the cake, and then the cherries on top of that icing on the cake, is when Japan rotates and unwinds their rates. The rate cuts, it's going to be that's all she wrote for the Treasury market. What is a monthly price for Bookmap? It depends. Yeah, there's a lot. Depends on what your needs are. I have a very robust need for Bookmap, so I have the highest package. I have Global Plus with the MBO package with rhythmic data. Runs at roughly about $200 a month. But I use it every single day throughout my analysis. So, right now we've got SPY rejecting the 417 negative gamma level, coming on down to 412. And I need to hit a little refresh on that, speaking of. You see they are putting on a touch of liquidity, 14.6, but we still have, or 14.262, but we have still 14.237 here and 150 down south. And we are top wicking on a pivotal point. Looking right now, we breached into negative territory or positive GEX territory on 0 DTE at 414. So once we breached under 414, what happens on the chart? First of all, let's back up for those who are uneducated or ignorant on this particular subject. What happens when you enter into positive GEX territory? The buyers start to get a little bit more supportive. In fact, somebody asked me a question the other day because if you remember, we shorted off of 414 on SPY last week, and it ended up being a pretty dang profitable play. And somebody asked me, well, why didn't you short it at 4? Why did you wait? Because the price action went above 414 and hit 414.5. Like, why didn't it reject 414? And I was like, well, it's because the data has to change. It's a range where once you enter into that area, then the data starts to really flip into that territory. So it's more of a range. And we have the positive GEX territory flipping into 414. We breached into it, and then we started getting this consolidation under it until the dealers start to put in a little bit more exposure, at which now they're starting to build a little bit 409, which would be another 3 points lower. Now 409 would put us on top of the daily POC, so that would be an epic move if that were to occur. You know how I can tell the market is going south? My long dated cover call is buy to close at profits every day and then intraday, and even intraday. Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. Just sold my first options contract, writing premium like you suggested, bro. It's all about making sense. I love it, JB. Beautiful. What'd you take? Just curious. I think I'm finally joining next Monday. I love it, Trev Trades. Look forward to having you. I do offer daily levels on SPY. Yes. I post them every morning, and then for Tier 2 members, I offer macro levels that are posted every Sunday night. And this week they've been particularly accurate. I don't know what got into them this week, but they're sus, very sus accurate. I don't know if that makes sense. So 4160 top wicking off of here. Nasdaq is 14,189. I'm currently flat. I had a put I just closed out, my runners. I've had a pretty fantastic day. I'm looking at the premiums now. We got 31% IV, and premiums are still carrying $11 for calls at the money positions. Looking through here. X that out. Don't need that. Don't need that. All right. Are we looking for a short or long position? Right here, I'd like to see a bit of a bullish reprieve here to kind of refresh the chain, because it's once it reaches a certain point, you start second guessing yourself on taking shorts, because at what point do we bounce? So it's good to see that. Not to mention we did bounce off of 4150, which is the bottom liquidity on Bookmap, and we are rejecting a pretty major pivot here of 4163. All that to say, there's no reason not to continue to look for south in the afternoon. This is obviously a very strong trend down day, outside of some reprieve by the buyers. We're coming off. Now, we do have a pretty big catalyst today, which is Amazon earnings, which is posting right at the bell here. So that's to say something. Amazon has since given back their pretty green day, and they are now down 1.8. So my baskets are still in the downside unless otherwise stated. Do you also share the information such as GEX and where dealers are positioned? I do. Yeah, we talk about that stuff all day. So most of our conversation is either centered, it's like 80%, trading analytics with talking about the option chain positioning, liquidity, order flow, Bookmap, that type of stuff, and it's 20% talking about tacos, Taco Bell, favorite food, that type of thing. We like to have fun. 14,193. And ES has this 4165, and now we have this iceberg building right in this area at 4165. So obviously we see here, indicated by these consolidation with dojis and a couple of bottom wicks, that we're grinding right up against this lower liquidity level, and that being the main level and being managed with an iceberg, there's a good possibility we're going to attack this 4165 here. Now watch the CVD as well to see if they're going to continue to buy up the CVD and make it a little bit more neutral, but right now it's obviously pretty heavy. VIX is coming off heavy. Yeah, we've got VIX coming off 2149 here. We have one good red coming out nearly highs of the day, and that will be a good sign. Because with IV being this high, with VIX being this high, if they do start to come off VIX a little bit with this move, then we could look for a possible tailwind back up to like 4176 into Amazon earnings, which is if it wasn't for Amazon earnings, I would write that possibility off today. But with the possibility of Amazon earnings to kind of come back to a more of a neutral state, that is a possibility. However, right now, the sellers are still very much in control, and I wouldn't play that trade until I start to see the signs. Spot gam is $80 a month, but we don't talk about tacos on the Discord. I'm willing to pay the extra $20 to talk about tacos. I love it. Hey, tacos are delicious, man. Delicious. All right. $41.62 here. What you got, Gino? Man, look at that. 104. Iceberg. You see the CVD is trickling up here, so that tells me the buyers are making an attempt at 41.65 here. And if you zoom out, that's the biggest level on the chart at the moment. All the way to 42.75, 40.50, and that's it. It's just hanging out right here, 41.60. And the longer we hang out right here and make these attempts, I'll be looking for them to make a final attempt at a 41.65 to see how they absorb. And that's where I'll really watch to see, is it absorption, or we're just going to reject on down. So watch this interaction. For NASDAQ, they're shifting this lower. They've got 225 on, and that would be, what, about a 40-point pop up there? But another top wick. Let's go over the 15-minute, see what do we have. We have a top wick followed by a small top wick. Looks like it wants to fail. On the 15-minute, we'll wait for it to close here in 5 minutes, no, 10 minutes. 15-minute pulling down a little bit. Price action is asking for a wipeout. Yeah. If this one fails and continues to transact into that 50, this will kick us off into the POC. There's very little support from here to the POC. So if the bulls are going to make a move, they better do it. Otherwise, we're going downtown. So there's that hit right there. Couldn't get through 41.65. Top wick, top wick, top wick. Failed. Couldn't even attempt 41.65 before another big move down. $41.10. Yeah, so that would be 25 points down. That would put us literally right on top of the POC. So that would make sense. What's a bottom target? I had 412 on SPY. Can it get lower? Well, right now they're starting to build exposure even lower than where we are. Obviously, on a day like today, you have to zoom out and play the macro stuff. On a day with this much oomph, the short-dated stuff there's not much left on the short-dated stuff because we haven't been here since May. So you have to zoom out to macro pivots, and then you have to rely heavily on the options chain data and, of course, order flow. So right now we're looking at 410, and they're building into 409 for the 0 DTE in terms of GEX data. So that's where my target is, not to mention we have the 4120 daily POC, and we're heading even lower here. Now, I know it's hard to think about 4120. That's 30 points down here, but there's not a lot of bullish support. Every time the bulls try to make a move, it immediately goes into top wick right here. Top wick, top wick, top wick, and then finally flush. The pressure's still down. Now on Bookmap here, I want to track liquidity. You see them building into 4140, a little bit more hefty, into 4142. Collectively, we're looking at approximately, 700 orders there? 500 orders? So here we go, down. Dropping. A little bit more pressure, coming down. $41.52. This is even weaker than the 1040 buy-up. Yeah. All the buy-ups are getting weaker and weaker. At a 41.50. Look at that. NASDAQ is about to put new low of the day in. Nasty. 41.50 about to break 50 right there. And that's going to transact even lower. And this will put us into the 41.40 range after this. It's a 410, so they've more robust. You see that the sellers have completely wiped this thing down, and who's completely in control. We went from low volume attempts at 41.65, trying to attempt, and then the volume comes in and dumps this thing right back off. Bit of a megaphone pattern on the short-dated term. TLT, the bonds are still rallying, so still more rotation out of the equities and into the bonds, and the yields continuing to still drop. Yields are getting smoked, the bonds are rocketing, and the equities are getting smoked. More specifically, tech. They used AI to influx liquidity into the tech to rally liquidity as a flight to safety. And now they have to remove that liquidity to go into tech. That's why you're seeing this odd behavior. I even saw a guy on Twitter post, bonds are rocking and get ready to take calls on SPY. And that's exactly what Michael Gaia talks about, that everyone is screwed because people are not going to be able to adjust the interpretation of what's happening here. Treasury market, it rules all. Treasury market is the Mac Daddy. 41.52. TLTMF, yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. I still have those Thursday expiration puts for next week. Should I keep them? I mean, everything still says down into Monday. Still says down into Monday. Now, I'm not going to tell you to keep it or not. I closed out my Friday positions, and I'm going to reposition into more aggressive because my positions were already pretty close to 1 deltas. Who's ready to see our old friend? Yeah. Man, I'm going swing puts 3 weeks out. They're going to murder this over the next week. Yep. I'm with you. In fact, let me take a look at next Friday. What's next Friday? Next Friday is November 3rd. Holy crap, dude. It doesn't even get any better next Friday. November 3rd. Dude, have you seen Friday? Look at Friday's positioning. It's even worse than Tuesday and Monday. I'm talking, this is it, man. Do I go live every day? I do. What do you mean TLT's a Mac Daddy? Well, not TLT itself. It's the treasury market. The treasury market is multiple times bigger than the equities. The treasury market is the sauce. It's the main reason why ever since I started this community, my whole theme is trying to teach people that the only thing that really matters is the banks and the treasuries. Tech, AI, Apple, Amazon, that's all window dressing. It's all window dressing. It's always something new, and if you bring it back to volume price analysis, VPA, Anna Coling talks about that news is simply an event to introduce liquidity or to create exit liquidity. That's all it is. And AI was the means on which to pump tech for a flight to safety trade, because everything else is, that's why the top 7 tech stocks have been through the moon and everything else is either negative or flat. So they had to put their money somewhere safe, and that is tech. And now that tech is over with, because they saw the bonds coming to them, as TLT and other bond products are getting crushed to all-time lows, which is historical, by the way. Now they could rotate out of the flight to safety, which is tech, into the new flight to safety, which is treasuries. And that's what's happening now. Real quick, what's the difference in levels you provide between Tier 1 and Tier 2? The Tier 1 is the daily macro levels that you're able to day trade and scalp off of. The macro levels are, I post on Sunday, and they're good for the entire week, and you're able to take longer-term swing trades off of those if need be. But man, look at this. Look at the deltas for Friday. This is silly. For the third, like next Friday. We're talking 405, 400 positive deltas. It's crazy. How low are we going today? Who knows today? We've already put on a good deal of pain. We've ridden a good portion of this down. With IV, we knew that we were going to have a 40 to 50 point move today at the open. We just didn't know for sure which direction after the GDP, but we quickly knew, and we were able to jump on some puts. For continuation down, the bulls aren't stepping in. We're about to put another low in. We have 41.50 on deck, at which point we'll probably transact down to 41.40. My overarching target this week is 41.20. So that's the big deal. And I'm not necessarily looking for a potential target, although if we do get down to 41.20, that's the only time today that I will consider a blind call just because of where we're at. And it'll be a small speculation call. Other than that, puts all day long until otherwise seen. Liquidity is shifting 41.50. I have a 0 DTE put on SPY. Can't tell when to sell. Set trailing stops. If you don't know when to sell it, just set a trailing stop, and whatever happens, happens. Or my favorite Kamala Harris quote, "What can be unburdened by what has been." 41.52. I'm pretty sure that's her only quote. There's that punch right there, 41.50, and drill right through liquidity. And here comes 41.40. On down. Beautiful. Beautiful. Gobble. 409 on SPY is where they're starting to build the positive GEX here. Positive GEX. Bottom wick, look at that. They just filled 1,400 stops. 1,400 under that 4150 level. Bottom wick. Man, that's a big old stop right there. $41.50. I want to see 400 by Tuesday. Certainly possible. The data next week is abysmal. So we'll see how things roll. If that bottom wick fails, watch for 4140, especially with that kind of stop loss. If there's, I mean, look at the CVD. It just dumped down to nearly 12,000, and they just stacked on 4140. So if they could continue to pile in and absorb that move, then, I mean, continue down. What you don't want to see here, you see them shifting down 4163. They took 4163 and pivoted to 62, to 61, to 60. So they're chasing these bids down, and they're stacking on 4140, which is a sign that we have a little bit more pressure left here. Yellen speaking right now. Did Biden ever come on, or did he just kind of skip that? Bottom went back to 4151. They almost got there. They got to 4146. Did to this level here before smashing them things right there. All right, CVD is still hanging out. Bonds are going crazy, dude. The bonds are up 1.3% to 84.57. Yeah, I'll get you. I'll get you. Do you think we go under 80? I don't know, man. I thought we were going over 80, but I mean, the signs are on the wall that the rotation is happening. Yeah, it's a nasty bottom look right there. I think institutional buying will cancel BOG. It could. Either way, I think it's time for the dollar cost averaging for sure. Into bonds. Is Bookmap less effective for equities than futures because of a hidden dark pool of equities? I wouldn't say less effective. It's still very effective because tracking order flow is key. I personally trade a lot of index, so I mean it helps for me. If you see stack liquidity, regardless of what is going on, I mean it's gonna happen. Where did I take my put this morning? Are you on Are you on the stream? I'll show you where I traded. Yellen just says what we have looks like a soft landing. Mind you, these people are running our country. I love it. All right, 41.58 top wick or bottom wick here, 11 points back up under decent volume. You see that is a stop run. That right there, for those who ask me about my stop orders, that is the use of the stop runs right there. All this other crap, I'm not concerned with any of this. That right there is what concerns me. Come on down. Obviously, that was a big stop run. Popped nearly 1,400 of them. Come on back up. Did Yellen say that right as we touched 41.50? She did. What subscription packages do you recommend for Bookmap? It really depends on you. I personally have the Global Plus. The Global Plus. $41.57. Let it ride. There you go. All right. What product are we looking at in Bookmap? Right now, this is ES, futures. The two things I track is ES and NASDAQ. Right here. NASDAQ has up to 14,237. Taking off this here, building this liquidity. Right now, we're pretty much range bound. We attempted a breakout there, but they bottom wicked it. But we've been here for an hour and 20 minutes. No trades for me at the moment. 10 points off SPX mounts. There you go. Nice M. If I go long into calls for TLT, how would you ride a 100 strike? I feel like it won't be instantaneous, but this is the first time I've looked into bonds this much. I'm not looking to do anything short term on the bonds. Everything I'm doing is going to be long term holds. I'm going to be around for the long haul. And then once the equities drop below 3,000, like at ES, then I'll come out of the bonds, close those positions, and rotate myself into equities. Or anywhere near 3,000 for that point. $41.57 here. Looks like they're going to go for that $41.65 after all. I have $5,000. I'm trading futures. Do you have any advice for me? Keep it small. The best trading book you could read is The Tortoise and the Hare. So if you have a kid, go into their bookshelf, go get that book and read it. Slow and steady wins the race. After that, go get you a book. Go get you a copy of Complete Guide to Volume Price Analysis. Second best trading book. I was joking. I mean, if you want to read it, I was joking. But the point is slow and steady. If you've got $5,000, you need to be looking at, all right, I'm going to make $10 a day. $10 a day. And then work your way up to $50 a day. If you can do that. Obviously, you're not going to do that every day, but consistently. Do you think we could retrace all the way back down to 3K ES? I do. I do think we'll come down and attack that level. Obviously, I mean, around that area, whichever. All I want is a low enough point where I can rotate into equities and buy and hold for 20 years, 30 years, until the next bear market. All right, 4160 is there. We've got liquidity to 4140 here. And all I'm really waiting for here is a good VPA sign to get us out of this range. Did she say AI yet? 412. So building there. 27. Man. It's going to be a spicy few weeks. That's for sure. It's looking likely we are not going to start November off with our bullish seasonality. If that even comes. Could you demo a quick example of your reference to volume profile? Yeah, sure. Let's take a look. Yes. Daily. Adjusted for contracts. Right there. I don't need any of that crap. We're good here. So right there. The daily POC on the volume profile, which is the highest distribution of volume, is 41.20 right here. Now that's adjusted for contracts. So make sure you are adjusting for contracts. Otherwise, you're going to have the gaps in there, which you don't want. 41.20. Now that tells you that there's a whole bunch of participation. Here, I'll use this guy right here. In that area. A whole bunch. Now we could look at SPY as well. Delete all this stuff. This is old stuff. So SPY right here is coming on down to about 389, 388, which is also the bottom support on the options chain right there. With 385 is what we said. So right in line. It's about 20 points down. So when I look for these things, the market tends to come back to these POCs, which is high activity. And when it does, that's where you look for the opposing party to defend. Right on down to this area. We're approaching it on ES. Just watch that area. You see right here, we had a level here. This is the second highest volume node of activity. You see the consolidation zone. We had a bounce, pivot, 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 pivot. If you come all the way back, you see it. Why? There's a node there. And then we bounce right off of it before coming on down. And the next one is going to be right here. That's the POC right there. Right here. Got a little bit more move up here. After that bottom wick, let's go to the 15-minute, see how this looks. That bottom wick does set up the 15-minute candle to look bullish, but obviously we need the follow-on. For 41.61. Yeah, up until 41.65. Yeah, now they're stacking on at 41.60 here or 70. They've got these icebergs up there. That 41.65 is the one they tried to grab earlier and failed on that quick drop down. But overall, we're still inside this range. And I need, above 41.65. If they can hold that, that's where we'll look for the base or break above, base absorb, and then transact higher. That's where we're looking for that. Another top wick, though, is going to send us careening out of control here. Are there concerns with holding futures beyond the close of normal trading hours? It really depends on your balance. If you've got a big enough account, not really. The biggest problem with the holding futures overnight is if you are like a PDT trader and you've got like $25,000, $26,000 in your account and you hold a losing futures position through the settlement, it'll settle you out of the PDT rule under the PDT limit, and you won't be able to option trade without a violation, or you'll get a notification of it. That's the problem there. Just make sure you've got the funds to cover your future trade if you're going to bag hold, because the mark to market will hit you. Mortgage rates pop up again to 7.8. You're welcome, Richard. All right, what we got here? So there's that 41.65 attempt. I haven't taken a trade now because we're still range bound, although it's starting to look like we're going to pop out here. Let's see how they deal with 41.65 before we look at anything. We have an iceberg come on lower. We're about to transact through there. 41.66. And we absorbed all of that right there. Chasing that iceberg. $14,237. Yeah, VIX is coming off nice, 21.27. Top wick. There we go. Can't get through it so far. 409 today for real, for real. Love it. Love it. Big old top wick. That is nasty right there. Nasty. Top wick. So another rejection of the 65 area after finally transacting it. Can they hold the top wick though? An initial top wick on a level like that is not uncommon. If they hold it, then we'll look for their rejection. Otherwise, we may make an attempt at the 70. The sellers can't sustain, otherwise it'll obviously we'll attack 47 again. Still not out of the woods yet. We're still inside the range, so I'm not going crazy here. I'm not going crazy. No need to force a trade on today's movement. We still have a lot of movement left in the tank. Wait for the market to tip its hand. No idea where this thing's going. CVD is still cranking up a little bit. Sellers are not maintaining control so far. All right. Buyers don't want to see a 41.40 again. Not yet, at least. Not yet. $41.64. All right, so we've got them holding the top of this range. IV is 32% still, so we're still going to have a move into this bell. At 41.65. We've got 41.76 is morning low and 7.2 is overnight low. Iran says that genocide in Gaza will not spare the United States from the fire. With futures, do you know what the margin requirements are? It depends on your brokerage. It's different for every broker. We've got 4163. 4170. What are we doing here? We have the 40. It's still not moving, man. Still not moving. Why is there still resistance at a level that sometimes even after liquidity has been cleared? Well, it's not going to absorb an entire level in one touch, especially when they reposition into that level. And that's the strength. That's the true strength of a level, because the more macro of a level, the more I'm going to see participation at that level, even when we go through those particular levels. And you see it, coming on and off here with the option chain, I'm sorry, the order flow. But especially a level like this, it's to do the process of absorption. So we'll come up and tap it, come off a little bit, tap it, come off a little bit. Every time we're absorbing. And the final question at that is, well, does it come off or does it continue to push through? Well, it really depends on the strength of the environment. Right now, we're in a seller's environment, which means sellers are ruling the day. And the buyers need to be able to step in at some point once we hit a overall demand to really take over the equation. And so like right now, I am more leaning towards shorting this level than I am longing it, just because, one, sellers are in complete control. We're at a pretty decent pivot here. We've already got multiple failures off this 4165. Also looking for short entry. Trade debate finally back. Nice. Yeah, trade debate's been down, what, 3 times today? It's terrible. It's terrible. Still holding 4164. Fidelity holding my extra fund deposit. Would you short this into tomorrow, or is Amazon ER too volatile? Now that I've already closed out my weekly short, I'm not going to re-enter one. I will re-enter one next or tomorrow. But I don't want to hold into Amazon. I'd rather just kind of chill and play it as needed. It's been a pretty fantastic week. I don't want to push my luck. Especially if they do the old pumping up that Microsoft did. That's correct, Tracy. That's correct. You're welcome. So you need approximately, what, 50,000? Oh, connection restored. I lost my connection. Is everybody good? Can you hear me? I didn't even know I lost my connection. Just said connection restored. All right. Well, we're coming up on the top of the hour, which means that'll be it for the stream. Unfortunately, we are in a bit of a consolidation here. And attempting to break out of here, but the sellers are still doing their job. Spent a lot of time at this desk this week. Looking forward to the weekend. Yeah, the old. Doesn't matter when I leave, random times it'll still dump. All right, 41.64. No movement. Ninja still works for me, but I think they own Trade of 8. Oh. All right, still holding 41.66. New high, 41.67 there. Man, this thing's slow. Found get the connection with Citadel. Yeah, I wish I had that much influence. No, I don't. All right. A little bit of green up here. Well, I apologize for the markets being kind of slow here when we came on. It's been pretty fun up until this point. Now we're kind of creeping back up. Looks like they want to retest higher after eating up all this liquidity. 70. Just very slow movement here. I would be cautious trading until momentum picks back up. So, yeah. Not really know what they're going to do with this at the moment. VIX is still coming off here. We did hold that 412. Fed bids for 7-year notes, 0. Wow. I don't think there's been one yet. I don't think they've had a bid on any of the major auctions yet. Gold doesn't sound like a bad move. Yeah, go for it. Definitely not. All right, y'all. There's the top of the hour. Yeah, so good questions. Apologize we couldn't get a trade in there, but hey, sometimes it gets choppy. I'll see y'all next Thursday, 1 p.m. Eastern Time for more stream analysis and watching order flow. So if you want to be a part of the community, use that link in the description. Come on, head over, join with us, and hang out with us. So got a lot of content on YouTube as well. If you want to like and subscribe to the channel, you can pretty much go through and some more on demand what you're looking for. Otherwise, I'll see y'all next Thursday, 1 p.m. Eastern Time, and I'm out.